I was so terrified that I nearly ended my own life. It felt like I was trapped in a prison of fear and shame. So much so that I dropped out of college and pushed away everyone who cared about me, just to hide what was really happening. All of this started because I trusted the wrong guy. Watch how that one choice of dating the wrong guy nearly destroyed my entire world, and how I finally found the strength to fight back. It all started when I went through a very painful breakup. I felt really lonely and depressed at the time, so I decided to try a dating app in hopes of finding someone to keep me company. Before long, I matched with a guy who seemed genuinely interesting. He was handsome, and his profile gave me a good impression. We started chatting almost every day. At first, our messages were casual. He seemed polite and attentive. After about 2 weeks of chatting, we decided to meet for dinner at a cozy little restaurant in town. It went really well, so we decided to meet again. One dinner turned into several, and soon we were seeing each other almost every day. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. I thought I had found someone who could truly understand me and be there for me. One evening, we went out for dinner at our usual spot. We were talking and laughing when he suddenly got a phone call. He excused himself and went to the restroom to answer it. At first, I didn't think much of it, but when he returned, I noticed he looked worried. His face was tense, and his voice had a slight tremble. He told me he had forgotten about an urgent meeting with an international client. He apologized for cutting our evening short and asked if we could reschedule. I felt a bit disappointed, but I didn't want to seem clingy or suspicious. So I smiled and said, "It's okay. We can meet another time." I genuinely believed he had a work emergency. After all, he had never lied to me before. He drove me home that night. As we arrived at my place, he received another phone call while standing in my yard. Because I have a security camera installed there, the conversation was recorded. To my absolute shock, I heard him say, "Okay, love, I'll meet you and our daughter at the restaurant." My heart nearly stopped. My mind raced with questions. Daughter? Wife? Who was he talking to? I felt my stomach drop. He had never mentioned having a wife or a child. In fact, he'd always acted like he was single. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying that moment in my head, wondering if I had misunderstood. Maybe it was his sister or a cousin, but deep down, I knew what I had heard. The next morning, I decided I needed answers. I called him and asked if we could meet for coffee. We sat down in a quiet cafe. He looked happy to see me, but I was all angry. I asked him, "Who was that on the phone last night? Are you married?" His face changed immediately. He started making excuses, saying it was complicated, and that he was in the process of getting a divorce. I told him never to contact me again. Then I walked out of the cafe. On my drive home, I noticed a car behind me that seemed to be following me too closely. I tried changing lanes and making a few extra turns, but the car stayed with me. My heart pounded when I realized it was him. By the time I got home, he was right behind me. I rushed inside and locked the door. Moments later, he started banging on the door, shouting, "Please open up!" She's my wife, but we're getting divorced. I love you and want to marry you once the divorce is final. I stood on the other side of the door, shaking. I yelled back that I would call the police if he didn't leave, but he kept pleading, saying he had something to show me. Against my better judgment, I opened the door a crack. He pushed his way in, and before I knew it, he had pulled out his phone. He showed me a private video of us, something I had no idea he had recorded. My face went cold with shock. He looked at me and said he would post it all over the internet if I went to the police or told anyone about it. I felt trapped, terrified of what would happen if that video got out. In a moment, all my strength drained away. From that day on, my life became a nightmare. He would text or call me, demanding I do whatever he said. If I resisted, he would remind me of the video. I felt like I was living in a prison of fear and shame. I stopped going to college because I was afraid he might show up there. I avoided my family and friends because I didn't want them to suspect anything. People around me thought I was just going through a hard time because of my recent breakup, but they had no idea what was really happening. Day after day, I felt increasingly hopeless. I started having dark thoughts, wondering if life was even worth living. But each time I thought about harming myself, I felt a tiny spark of hope that maybe I could still escape this situation somehow. I just didn't know how. After about 2 weeks of living in this terror, there was a knock on my door. To my surprise, it was my ex-boyfriend, the one I had dated before meeting this man. We had broken up because he was being posted overseas with the military, and we both felt a long-distance relationship would be too hard. I was shocked to see him standing there. He looked worried, and I could tell he was genuinely concerned about me. He said he had heard from mutual friends that I wasn't going to college and seemed depressed. He asked me what was going on. At first, I told him to leave, afraid to involve anyone else in this mess. But then he noticed fresh bruises on my neck. I saw his face change from worry to anger. He refused to leave until I told him the truth. In a shaky voice, I finally opened up. I told him everything about the man I met on the dating app, how I found out he was married, and how he was blackmailing me with a private video. I expected my ex to judge or blame me, but he didn't. Instead, he gently took my hand and said, "No matter what has happened between us, I still care about you. We're friends first, and I'm here to help." His words felt like a lifeline. I had been drowning in fear and shame, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. He told me I needed to call the police right away. I was terrified, and I kept imagining the video being posted everywhere. But he said, "We'll do this the right way. We'll talk to the police, explain everything, and make sure they block him from posting anything online." We sat down and planned our next steps. First, we gathered any evidence I had, screenshots of his messages, recorded phone calls, and the video he had shown me. Even though it was humiliating to admit I had a private video, it was important to have everything. Next, we dialed 911. My ex spoke first, telling them we needed help and that this was a case of blackmail and potential assault. Then, I spoke to the officer on the line, explaining as much as I could without breaking down. My voice shook, but my ex was right there, holding my hand and encouraging me. Before long, the police arrived. They listened to my story and took my statement. I handed over the evidence. They assured me they would act quickly. It wasn't easy to let strangers into such a private, painful situation, but I knew it was the only way to stop living in fear. The police moved fast. They located him and arrested him on charges of blackmail, harassment, and other offenses. He was locked up, and a restraining order was put in place to protect me. They also worked with internet service providers to ensure he couldn't upload the video anywhere. I can't describe the relief I felt when the officers told me he was in custody. It was like a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. In the days that followed, I still felt scared and anxious, but at least I knew he couldn't hurt me anymore. My ex-boyfriend stayed by my side through it all. He took time off from his military posting, postponing it for 6 months so he could be there for me. It was something I never expected. I realized that even though we'd broken up for practical reasons, he still cared for me deeply. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to my story. I know it was a heavy topic, but I believe it's important to share these experiences. If you found my story meaningful, or if you think it could help someone else, please like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you again for listening, and take care of yourselves and each other.